Now, we've been talking about how Trump and the Patriots, they needed an event. They needed something which would provide cover. Now, if you really think about it, this is what the deep state, the central banks used to do. Trump is using the same weapons against them, against their system. How do you turn an economy? How do you shift everything from the central bank establishment back to Main Street? How do you shift all of this without hurting the people? How do you do it where you can make the case that we need to create some type of stimulus package where you can hand out cash to the people, where you can help businesses so these individuals aren't hurt? How do you do this? Well, if you know there's an event coming up, you know that you can use this event, and you know that you can use all of this to create a stimulus package, nothing like we've seen before, except back in 2002, 2009, where those funds were sent directly to the banks and to other central banks. You can then do what you need to do to protect this entire transition. And we've said for a very long time that Trump and the Patriots, this is what they were planning to do. They needed a way to soften the blow to the everyday person. They needed a way to transition everything. But they just couldn't come out and say, hey, listen, by the way, we have this terrible central bank system. It's going to implode. The debt level's too high. It doesn't benefit the people. So we're going to transition into something new. It's going to hurt a lot of people. Nothing we can do about it. No, they had to do it in such a way where it was completely covered up, and those people who have no idea what's going on, they just think they're getting this stimulus package. Remember that the entire economic system right now has been shut down. The system has been shut down, and Trump and the Patriots have the ability to do whatever they need to do today. Think about what they've done. Trump invoked the Defense Production Act. He has a national emergency. He has the ability to call companies back to the U.S., which they're starting to do. They're also trying to put off the IRS tax date. And if you notice, the IRS is pushing back. It's amazing how the IRS is pushing back, because think about all the CPAs, think about all the people, think about what is happening here in the country. This is exposing the central bank, the IRS, to the American public. Because look what's going on here, and they still want their taxes. Interesting. And the Certified Public Accountant Association, they're even pushing back on all of this. Now, what's very interesting is we've been seeing the market, huge upswings, huge downswings. Today, it seems that we are above 20,000 points once again. Trump, I do believe that he's trying to keep this in a even type of playing field. Now, I know the market has come down quite a bit. Think about all the companies, and we mentioned this yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, where the companies now, they're not going to be buying back their stock. Now, remember, during the years of the Obama administration, banks, they were instructed to take the funds from the Federal Reserve and pump up the market. They weren't taking those funds and allowing the infrastructure, businesses to grow. This was done on purpose. What has Trump done? He's taken this market, he's let it come down. Something like 10,000 points. Who does that really hurt? Think about the banks. Think about the elite. Think about all those individuals who were invested, who were throwing those funds back into the market. It's hurting a lot of those people. Now, I know a lot of people have their pension plans. It's based on the market, which tells me that Trump understands this. Now, of course, these are paper losses. Trump understands that he's going to have to pump this up again. Because remember, this is just one part of the shift. And we see already that Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, He has just issued a statement announcing that he sent Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell a letter approving the establishment of the Money Market Mutual Fund Liquidity Facility to provide liquidity to the financial system under Section 3.3 of the Federal Reserve Act. This will provide liquidity to money market mutual funds. Under the plan, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston would lend to eligible borrowers, taking as collateral certain types of assets purchased by the borrower. The Department of Treasury will provide $10 billion of credit protection from the Exchange Stabilization Fund to the Fed Bank of Boston for this program. He said the money market funds are an important investment tool for American families and businesses. They're doing what they need to do right now to protect Main Street. Now, the conservative treehouse, they put together part one, part two of this incredible reset. They call it a reset. I'm calling it a transition. Remember, the stock market is not the U.S. economy. The stock market is an investment instrument that determines valuations of economic activity company by company. The valuation is considerably arbitrary and based on the determinations of the arbiters, investors. This is empirically true. However, that said, how would the multinational underwriters, the multinational financial systems, reset all transactional tables if the U.S. stock market was forced to revalue economic nationalism over multinationalism globalism? This is the event where they're doing this. There had to be a point where the value of the second economy, Wall Street, the central bank establishment, surpassed the value of the first economy, which is Main Street. Investments and the bets needed to expand outside the U.S. That's how we got globalist or globalism investing. Now, the politicians became more valuable to a Wall Street team than the Main Street team. And Wall Street, the central bank establishment, had deeper pockets because their economy was now larger. Wall Street started funding political candidates and asking for legislation that benefited their interest. Main Street, the infrastructure of the U.S., they didn't have this power because everything was being directed away from this. So Main Street continually declined while the central bank establishment kept increasing in power globally. So what did Trump have to do? Well, Trump had to come along. He had to be elected. He had to say, listen, we're going to make America great again. And Trump started to put policies into place. He lowered the corporate tax rate to offset the Asian benefit of Chinese subsidies. He also narrowed production costs by lowering U.S. energy costs. A policy to unleash all facets of energy development. Pipeline approvals. ANWR opening. Lower energy costs in the U.S. narrows the cost difference for manufacturing. Trump deregulates various industries, again closing the gap between the U.S. and Asian nations. Part of the deregulation allows for expanding easier raw material development. With the initial framework established, Trump starts getting serious. Trump puts a big wrench into the cost dynamic with tariffs on imported goods from China and Asia. Trump then eliminates the 3-decade-old NAFTA loopholes that allowed manufacturers to work around origination rules. The USMCA has more strict origination rules that require parts to originate in North America. When does that come online? In June. The tax tariff for violating the origination rules are not particularly high, but they are a disincentive. Again, that narrows the cost difference. All of these policies lower corporate taxes, deregulation, lower energy costs, access to abundant raw materials, close NAFTA loopholes, and a looming threat of easy-to-apply tariffs work together to narrow the cost difference between production in Asian nations and production in the U.S. It makes it possible for companies to come back to the U.S. Then when you factor in shipping costs and new trade rules, well, the difference is minimal. The multinational system are now open to reset in the current global evaluation indexes because the landscape has completely changed. Trump has changed everything, and to make this shift and to get Congress on his side fully, remember, because they have to vote for certain things, he had to show not just Congress, but the American people that it is not good to be using China supply chains, to have all our manufacturing, our raw materials, everything, our drug production in China. Now, what is happening? Congress, the people, the world, it is waking up. Actually, Josh Hawley tweeted out the following: to any multinational corporation that come to Congress asking for dollars, you better come prepared to explain how you will move supply chains and jobs back to America if you want my vote. Think about this for a second. This is the great transition. Trump is using what is happening right now, not just to wake people up, not just to push other agendas forward, but to reset, to transition this entire economic system. He had to even out the playing field, and this is exactly what he's been doing. And now we're going to be moving into the next phase, because once Trump was able to make this entire system on an equal playing field where the cost is not that much different than having something manufactured in Asia or having something manufactured in the United States, what can he do next? Because now he has a system that is strong enough that can withstand whatever the central bank throws at him. Because once he goes after the central bank, once he makes his move to restructure and move us off the Federal Reserve note, and remember, the dollar that you use today, it is a Federal Reserve note. It's a instrument of debt. It's backed by air, and it has nothing to do with the people of the U.S. This is a private corporation, the Federal Reserve. And Trump right now is preparing and setting up the U.S. to go after the central bank. Think about the oil price right now. If you listen to his press conference, we know that the oil price per barrel is coming down right now. Remember, our system is based on the petrodollar system. And there's a couple positive aspects that comes out of this. I mean, think about it. As the gas price keeps coming down, it puts more money into the people's pocket. It's almost like a tax cut. The other thing is, it puts a lot of pressure on the petrodollar system, the way the system was designed. And as the price comes down, it makes it easier for Trump to move us off of that system. And I do believe once everything's all said and done, once this phase is over with, the next phase coming up is to pivot us away from the central bank. Now, this is going to be a little bit more tougher than what we're seeing right now, because the central bank, they play dirty. So does the deep state. But going after the central bank, this is going to be very difficult because they don't like to give up control. And remember, they have control around the world. And I do believe that this is not just the U.S. doing it. This is the U.S. I do believe we're in line with China. We're in line with Russia and many other countries to make this shift away from the central bank when the time is right. And I do believe that time is coming up very, very soon.